Hi there, and welcome to another Papetti Math YouTube video, where we will be looking at Chapter 10, The Algebra of Quadratics, Lesson 6, Quadratic Word Problems. In the previous video, we went over exercise number 1 together, so if you need to go back to my YouTube channel to find that video, you can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we're set to go with exercise number 2. Now, in exercise number 2, the product of two consecutive odd integers is 195. Both integers are negative. What are the two integers? So we're going to start this problem by taking all of this information that they give us and try to make an equation out of it. So it says the product of two consecutive odd integers is 195. So let's just talk about odd numbers. And any old odd number 5. What would be the next odd number? Well, the next odd number would be 7. And let's try 13. What would be the next odd number after 13? 15. Good. And finally, let's try 23. And what would be the next odd number after 23? Yes, it would be 25. So let's just see if there's a pattern between any of these odd numbers. So to get from one odd number to the next odd number, we would have to do what? And if you're thinking add 2, I agree. Is that always going to be the case, though? Do we add 2 to 13 to get 15? We do. And do we add 2 to 23 to get 25? We do. So to get from one odd number to the next consecutive odd number, we add 2. So we'll just keep that off to the side. And now we'll start our work over here. So we're going to let x equal our first consecutive odd integer. Now, if x is our first odd integer, what would be the next odd integer? And if we pay attention to this left side over here, we added 2 to get to our next odd integer. So if x was our first odd integer, our next odd integer would be x plus 2. And that would be our second consecutive odd integer. Okay, so the product. Okay, so product means to multiply your two odd integers. So we're going to multiply x times x plus 2. And the product is going to be 195. Both integers are negative. What are the two integers? Okay, so we're not there yet. But what we do want to do now is we do want to take this and simplify it the best we can. So let's go ahead and distribute that x. So we'd have x times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. And we would have that equal 195. Now remember, the best way to solve a quadratic, the only way to solve a quadratic that we know at this point, is to get it to equal 0 first. So we're going to subtract 195 from both sides. So we're going to have x squared plus 2x minus 195 is equal to 0. I'm going to transfer this up here. Okay, so now we have x squared plus 2x minus 195 is equal to 0. And we're looking for, first, if this could be factored. And the answer is yes, this one can be factored. But because this term is so large, 195, you might not know off the top of your head what two numbers multiply to 195 and also combine to 2. So instead of sitting here and thinking of all of our possibilities, we could go to our next method that we might see if it works, is completing the square. So let's try to complete the square with this one, because again, on the last exercise, we factored it. So our first step for completing the square is to move our c term to the other side. So I'm going to add that 195 since it's already a negative, and I'll get x squared plus 2x, leave a space, equals 195. And if you recall, the reason I leave that space is because my next step now is going to have me divide my b term by 2 and square it. So when I divide 2 by 2, I get 1, and square 1, I get 1. So I'm going to add 1 to not 1, but both sides of the equal sign. That makes the left side a perfect square trinomial, which means I can factor that in this form, where what times what will give me 1, and what plus what would give me 2. Well, 1 times 1 gives me 1, and 1 plus 1 gives me 2. And I would go over here and I would combine my terms to get 196. Now, what I want to do is I want to take the square root of both sides to undo this square. So I'm going to take the square root of the left side and the square root of the right side. That will leave me with x plus 1 is equal to, now remember a square root has both a positive and a negative solution, so we represent that by a plus or minus, and the square root of 196 is 14. So our last step is going to be to move that 1 over here, and we'd have x equal to -1 plus or minus 14. Now, this is going to result in two different answers. -1 plus 14 will give me x equal to 13, and -1 minus 14 will give me x equal to -15. So now that I have x equals 13 and x equals -15, I want to go back to my problem and see what's being asked of me. So it says, both integers are negative. What are the two integers? So right away, we don't want this positive one, so that's going to be the rejected answer. We're going to reject that answer. And we're going to keep the -15. But we want to know the two integers. So the way we get the second integer is we go back to our let statements over here. And our first let statement said that x was our first consecutive integer. And how do we get our second one? Well, we add 2 to it. So that would mean if we wanted to add 2, we would do -15 plus 2. And we'd get that our second integer would be -13. So your two integers are going to be -15 and -13. Now, if solving this exercise was helpful in this video, please click thumbs up below. Otherwise, let me know in the comments what you were having trouble with.